Thank you. I'd like to introduce Laurie Dixon, who will be presenting her Myth, Mischief, and Misadventures series. This series will be about learning how one goes about delineating a chart through the life of someone we all have read or heard about. She will present examples for the application of a progressed delineation to a specific chart. By using case studies, you will sharpen your interpretation skills. She will explore general character analysis, love, career, and other themes. This is an intermediate level discussion. Basic knowledge of planets, houses, signs, aspects, and progressions will be helpful. However, if you're just beginning, she will be confident you'll be able to follow along and gain some insight. Laurie became a Hermetician in January of this year. Prior to that, she received her certified astrologer designation from the Canadian Association of Astrologers Education in the 90s. She tells the story of how she was soon to retire and wanted to refresh her memory and knowledge and went searching for an online course and feels very strongly that the universe guided her to CC Zane and the Church of Light. Laurie is here tonight to introduce you to Hermetic astrology. This series is so much more than traditional transit astrology. Hermetic astrology gives one a better insight to the science of the stars, and Hermetic astrology is not taught by any other school but the Church of Light. Thank you for saying that, Laurie. There are many famous Hermetic astrologers. She tells me she plans to be one of them. Ha ha ha. No books will be required, no mathematical calculations, just listen and learn. Charts will be provided through the chat and Google Drive. Questions will be answered after the presentation, so please write them down as you think of them. And I'm going to ask that all of you stay muted while she does her class. Thank you, Laurie, for this wonderful class.
Okay. So, hi everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening. I'm a Cancer Sun, Gemini Moon with a Sagittarius Ascendant. With my Saturn in Scorpio in the 10th house, I truly like to dwell deep and do the research for these stories. I hope you get as much out of myth, mystery, and misadventure as I did putting it together. Hermetic astrology is not easy. But once you grasp the technique, you'll be an excellent astrologer. You'll have a solid base that will give you a great advantage to the growing number of astrologers out there. I am still learning this art. I'm using the Porphyry house system for these charts. I looked at both Placidus and Porphyry for today's case study, and the only difference was a few degrees on the houses, excluding the angles. Placidus put Pluto in the 11th, while Porphyry placed Pluto in the 12th. Because of who Anne Heche was, I decided to go with Porphyry since I'm leaning towards this house system in my further studies. If you're interested why, I can go into that during the question period. Okay, so let's begin. This is a story that leads to Anne Heche's last day in this physical world on last day on August the 5th, 2022. Anne Heche was an American actress and more. You would have seen her in her many movies and television series. For those of you that don't know her story, something went terribly wrong that day. Just before her crash, Anne buys a red wig and is pictured here in the salon owner, here with the salon owner. She looks perfectly fine and happy. He said later that she did not impaired in any way. Continuing from the hair salon, Heche bumps into an apartment building garage. A neighborhood camera catches the Mini Cooper speeding down the street. She then collides into a Jaguar, no injuries, proceeds to crash her Mini Cooper 20 feet deep into a house. Anne does not survive. She died from smoke inhalation and thermal injuries, including blunt trauma to the chest. The manner of death is ruled as an accident. The toxicology report indicated cocaine in her system. The blood sample also showed the presence of fentanyl. However, it was unclear if the drug was administered before or after the crash. No evidence of alcohol was found. She remained in a coma for nearly a week. Her organs were donated in accordance with her wishes, declared legally dead on August the 12th, and taken off life support on August 14th. Anne's time of birth is AA rated, which indicates from either a birth certificate or birth record. These charts that I refer to in this presentation will be in chat, and the complete presentation will be in Google Drive. The first thing to note is that her natal chart has movable, also known as cardinal, angles. She has 19 Libra on the ascendant, 22 Capricorn on the 4th house, 19 Aries on the 7th, and 22 Cancer on the 10th house. If you look at a person's decadence of the sun, moon, and ascendant, this gives you a quick look at the personality and character of the inner soul you're delineating. Blending them together can make a life story on its own. Her sun is decadent, is 4 degrees Gemini. She uses reasoning, logical thinking to resolve matters, immediate insight without having to do the mental hard work. The key word here is intuition. Her moon decadent is 20 degrees Virgo. It is the rejection of a belief or habit, personal sacrifice, giving something up voluntarily, the denial of a person or thing. The key word here is renunciation and surrender. Her ascendant decadent is 19 Libra, a state of being free of the authority control, restrictions of others, being free from the support of others. The key word here is independence. As an actress and dancer, singer, she has Libra on the ascendant, but she also has Venus in Aries opposite the ascendant. This screams, I am, look at me. As a writer, author, screenwriter, she has Mercury in Gemini, the natural ruler and the ruler of the 9th house of publishing. Anne claimed she was sexually abused by her father in her book, Call Me Crazy, published in 2001. Her Sun and Mercury are conjunct, giving her the added strength to her sense of who she was. She risked her reputation to put her experiences in print. This takes a lot of courage. She knew what she was doing, and she needed to, she knew what she was doing, what she needed to do to put her past behind her. Mercury is in dignity, and it is her most dominant planet according to the Church of Light Horoscope 2020 program. This is a very powerful placement. Venus and Saturn are in the 7th house. Venus is the ruler of her 8th house, the house of sex, and is detriment in the sign of Aries. Saturn, who rules security, is the ruler of her 4th house of domestic life and family. Mars rules assertiveness and patience and discord, is the ruler of her 7th house. Planet Mars shows us where her energy, her drive, her courage is directed. Mars in the 2nd house is fueled by her need for financial well-being. She became the breadwinner of the family after her father died of AIDS at the age of 13. This is her most discordant planet. Mars is retrograde, opposite her Sun and Mercury in the 8th house of sex and death. Neptune is in Scorpio in the 2nd house of values concerning intangible and material possessions, ownership, the parent. This is the house of one's value with other persons in society, a child's relationship to his or her family, friends, or associates, according to Dane Rudhyar in his book, The Astrological Houses. Drugs and alcohol became part of her life when she started working in the film industry at the age of 18. Heche has discussed her battles with drugs in interviews and on her podcast. She told ABC News in 2001, quote, "I drank, I smoked, I did drugs. I had sex with people. I did anything I could to get the shame out of my life." She has Uranus, Jupiter, and Pluto in the 12th house, the hidden side of life. Quote, "I was a perfect hider. I was raised to hide. I was raised to pretend. I was raised to always tell everybody that everything was fine. And even though I was in therapy for years, I never told anybody that I had another personality. I never told anybody that I heard voices and spoke to God. I never told anybody any of it. I'm not crazy, but it's a crazy life. I was raised in a crazy family, and it took 31 years to get the crazy out of me," unquote. With 4 planets in Virgo, she was a perfectionist. She was in control of her own thoughts. Her dominant Mercury, the ruler of her 12th house, held her together in her fantasies, her daydreams, and her escapism. This slide shows us her aspect grid and declinations from the Church of Light Horoscope 2020 report. Declinations has to do with planets being the same distance from the celestial equator. The parallel aspects activate your ability to organize and reorganize some aspect of your life, intensify the planets and luminaries involved. Her closest orb is her sun, applying by sesqui-square to her ascendant at 0 degrees, applying 1 minute. Her self-esteem, her ego, her sense of identity is suppressed. It is easier to ignore the smoldering conflict that has taken hold of her at such an early age, to ignore, deny, surrender. Her most powerful and worst aspect is her sun, parallel Mercury, her sun conjunct Mercury in Gemini in the 8th house. Keywords here are reflection, perspective, communication, uncertain, changeable outcomes. Anne would have placed a great importance on her mental faculty, fixing her own physical and psychological instability. Once she was able to do this, she would have a clarity of vision that is quite helpful in sorting out the details of normal cause and effect in her and in the lives of others. She was of sound mind at her best of times. The next most powerful and worst aspect, according to her astrodynes, is Mercury opposite Mars. The exchange of ideas may eventually be the source of some conflict. Conversations are certainly lively, but can often lead to arguments. Different points of view can turn into full-fledged quarrels all too easily with this combination. Words may be sharp and destructive, hence Anne's closest relationships were not long-lived. You can see a woman whose strengths and weaknesses were dependent on the way she thought. Mercury is involved in these 3 powerful aspects: Mercury conjunct her sun, parallel her sun, and Mercury opposite Mars. She wants to speak up and be heard. Her best and most harmonious is Jupiter sextile Neptune. Here she strives towards her ideal of a compassionate relationship. She has Neptune in Scorpio and is fundamentally optimistic, Jupiter. But there can be an ongoing sense of things slipping away. Her work, Neptune, is the ruler of the 6th house, and her way of communicating, Jupiter, the ruler of her 3rd house, may not be true to herself, her inner being. With this placement, she could clearly have the tendency to indulge in alcohol and drugs. It also shows how she made her money. with Neptune in the second, the film industry. With this placement, was it easy for her to escape to the from the third dimension to the fourth dimension by creating a fantasy world? Was it too easy to have access to an abundance of drugs and alcohol? Overindulgence may have unhinged her in her difficult times. Her sense of well-being was challenged by her innermost secret thoughts. Yet, she was able to show the public her jovial and creative side. That was her Jupiter sextile Neptune. I want to point out her moon, ruler of her 10th house, sesca square, Saturn, the ruler of her 4th house. The key words here are mother, agitation, father. This is not a happy home for her. Quote, my relationship with my mother was not a loving relationship. I was raised in a very, very strict, devout Baptist upbringing. My mother loved it that Jesus performed miracles, and Jesus was the Son of God, and Jesus was everything that's loving. She ignored everything else. When I told her I had a rash that was later diagnosed as genital herpes at the age of 12. Astrodynes are unique to the Church of Light horoscope program. It provides the calculations based on the mathematics and measurements of the power, harmony, and discord of the planet's power, which is measured by its house position, its sign, and its aspects. With an accurate birth time, you would make the assessment of the chart much more scientific and reliable. The planets with the above average power have the strongest influence. Other factors such as the environmental setting influences how much energy mapped in the chart will achieve. Astrodynes do not measure intelligence and ability, success or competence. That is up to the individual's free will. Let's look at Anne's Astrodyne summary on her temperament, behavior, and life. In societies, public scores the highest, whereas in her personal life, she has the most harmony. In Trinity, psychism is very powerful, yet it is wealth that makes her happy. Her element is earth for both power and harmony at 2907. She is very grounded, which would help her manage her disruptive and abusive life. You will notice that water is a close second, her emotional sign at 2899. She needed acceptance from those close, her lovers, her peers. With water next in harmony, she would be particularly responsive to the moods and actions of all those around her and easily influenced by her environment. Her qualities, mutable. She was exceptionally adaptable and versatile. This made it easy for her to create her second personality, Celestia. Mutable has both power and harmony as the highest scores. Astrodynes here show she was both a public person with her acting career and a private person concerning her personal life. She never spoke out about her relationship with Ellen DeGeneres. She lived in a world that was not the norm, yet she was grounded and had a mind that guided her well through life, and she adapted when she needed to. You can quickly see that Anne has a powerful midheaven. Just a minute. There we go. With 66.68 astrodynes, ambition and a great desire for success. Her son at 60 Mars is her most discordant planet at minus 17.72, followed by her Venus at minus 16.46, and her ascendant at 14.82, minus 14.82. Jupiter, being her most harmonious at 20.85 astrodines, is it is a psychic house. Anne has her Sun and Mercury parallel and conjunct in Gemini, the dual sign in this house. Her 8th house has the most power, but is also her most discordant house at minus 31.84 astrodines. We are starting to get a fuller picture of her personality with this tool. Her 12th house has the most harmony. Okay, I'll just go back. Her 12th house has the most harmony. At 41.42 astrodines. It is her house of escape, the house of delusions and fear, of hidden places and one's imagination. It is the house of loneliness and secrets. You can see how easy it was for her to create another personality, Celestia from another world. Her strongest sign is Virgo at 171.72 astrodines, with that powerhouse of stellium of 4 planets, and is also her most harmonious sign with 44.40 astrodines. Virgo wants to serve. It's skillful, meticulous, and gentle. Virgo's energy sets high standards. She could handle the stress of seeking perfection in all that she did and keep her inner feelings of inadequacies, her critical analysis of herself, her volatile mental sensitivity in check. It was all about performing to her highest level. I'm going to quote from Stephen King Live when he was asking her about her life as an actress. Heche responded, "Sure, I was good at it. I was a good actress, but I was also good at understanding that I could achieve what I wanted to achieve. And my first and foremost goal in my life to get healthy and what had happened to me. And I was good at working toward my goals. I was good. That was why I became a movie star. I was dedicated. I was dedicated to becoming a healthy woman, even when I had another personality in me. I was dedicated to finding my sanity and finding love, and I think I was good at that." She referred to herself as an alcoholic. She needed to master as many skills as she could manage: television, the big screen, Broadway, radio podcasts, author, etc. And just before her death, she was auditioning for The Masked Singer. Could this be her trying to prove herself to the world and to herself? The Heche family. Anne was the youngest of 5 kids. The first child, Cynthia, died at 2 months of age of a heart defect. Her brother died at the age of 18 in a car accident just 3 months after their father died in 1983. Her eldest sister, Susan, died of a brain tumor in 2006. Abigail is the 4th sibling, followed by Anne. Abigail and her mother, Nancy Heche, are the only survivors of this dysfunctional family dynamic. Anne published Call Me Crazy, her memoir, in 2001. In 2021, she said she was working on her second memoir called Call Me Sane. In January 23, her second book will be released. She renamed it Call Me Anne. The publisher said that he signed a deal with Heche in May of this year and that she had turned in her manuscript shortly before she died. Anne's alleged abuse, as published in Call Me Crazy, comes from her father. Indicators of sexual abuse are Mars, Pluto, and Venus. Dawn Heche's chart, her father, has an AA reading, and it clearly shows the intense planetary ties between him and his daughter Anne. Every natal planet of his chart connects to her planets. He was a Baptist minister, a choir director, leading a double life, chronically unemployed. There is very little information on the net about him. Here we are looking at their synastry, the ruling planets for incest. Mars, notably, Don's Mars, is conjunct Anne's Mars in his 5th house of children. Don's Pluto is 26 Cancer, Anne's Pluto 22 Virgo. Don's Venus, 4 degrees Taurus, Anne's Venus 21 Aries. Venus alone, between the two of them, make 22 close aspects in a 4-wheel chart. When you're looking at major progressions, minor progressions, transits to the natal. This is a volatile, unpredictable, impulsive relationship. The astral connections are striking. Don's sun is opposite Anne's Uranus exact. His sun is 29 Pisces, her sun is 29 Virgo. Don's Mars is opposite Anne's Uranus. Don's Mars, just a minute. Don's Mars, sometimes one can get a little lost, is opposite her sun. Mars at 2 degrees Sagittarius, her sun is 4 degrees Gemini. His Venus is in a very tight conjunction with her Saturn. His Venus is 4 Taurus, her Saturn is 3 Taurus, and so on. Looking at Don's birth chart, the inner wheel shows the potential for incest. He has a trine from Pluto in the 12th house of secrets to his Mars in the 5th house of children. His Mars inconjuncts his Venus in the 10th house of the parent of the opposite sex. His role as protector, his professional life, his successes, and his failures. Venus comes back to Pluto with a square. Notice that Don's Venus is his most elevated planet, and it is conjunct Uranus, sexual extremism. These 3 aspects just mentioned are in the allowable orb of the Church of Light Hermetic astrology. Don's Venus is the ruler of the 4th house, the father. If Anne was molested as a young girl, this would play a significant part in her life, how she managed her life, how she confronted her ordeals. Anne Heche died of AIDS in March of 1983. Anne called him a sexual deviant. At 13, she was now free of him. The planetary interaction between these two is quite dramatic and worth taking a closer look. But this story is about Anne's last day on Earth. So if you are interested in the astrosynastry of father and daughter, this document is available, giving you the many aspects of Mars, Pluto, and Venus. There is so much going on here. Now we're going to have a brief look at Anne's synastry with Ellen DeGeneres. Anne first saw Ellen at the Vanity Fair Oscar night after party on March 24th, 1997. Picking a time of 8 p.m., Libra was on the ascendant, the moon was in Libra, and Venus, Sun, Saturn, and Mercury were all deposited in the 6th house at the time of this event, work-related. Anne and Ellen's charts are available on chat and Google Drive. Anne said, at the moment she laid her eyes on Ellen, quote, I became oblivious to everything the second I saw Ellen. I had never been attracted to a woman before. I mean, I loved women, but not at all physically, unquote. They left the function together and began their relationship that night. This relationship was Anne's first gay relationship. It was love at first sight. The astral connections for both Anne and Ellen and the event chart that night was all about Venus, Mercury, Moon, and Mars. This relationship shows you a woman who goes after what she wants, knows the consequences to her career, being the first public gay super couple. Anne was shunned by the movie industry and the television industry for approximately 10 years because of this relationship. According to their astrodynes, the sign Gemini has the most power and harmony, and its ruler Mercury also has the most power and harmony. Here you see both Anne's Sun and Mercury are opposite her Sagittarian Mars, and as a couple, Mars is their most harmonious planet. Anne's Venus is in the 7th house and is conjunct Ellen's Moon, the house of relationships. And Sun Mercury in the 8th house squares Ellen's ascendant in her 5th house, the house of romance and risks. Anne's Sun Mercury trines Ellen's Sun Venus in her 4th house of domestic affairs. Anne's Mars is in the 2nd house at 11 Sagittarius and is sextile, excuse me, Ellen's Sun Venus in her 4th house. Anne was in the driver's seat. With Anne's Mars in close sextile to Ellen's Venus and both their suns in a close trine of each other shows the strong attraction they had for each other. Anne left Ellen for Cole Laffoon, the cameraman she hired for her documentary she directed that was to be released in 2001, titled Ellen DeGeneres, American Summer. It was about DeGeneres' 2000 stand-up comedy tour. The documentary was never released. The project was never completed. Anne left Ellen in August 2000. Their short 3 years together is indicated by transiting Uranus in the event chart. Transiting Uranus is at 7 degrees Aquarius, and it falls in Anne's 4th house of domestic life and is the ruler of Anne's 5th house, the house of romance. Ellen's natal Uranus is 9 degrees Leo and is in Anne's 10th house. Transiting Uranus is in close opposition to Ellen's Uranus and is also conjunct Ellen's Sun and Venus. Transiting Neptune is at 29 Capricorn and is in an exact trine to Anne's Uranus, Anne's ruler of the 5th house. Not highlighted here is the event Mars at 23 Virgo in the 12th house and is conjunct to Anne's Moon, Pluto, Jupiter, and Uranus with the allowed orb of 8 degrees. And the event's Venus was at 2 degrees Aries in the 6th house, opposite Anne's Uranus as well. These are not easy aspects for a long-term relationship with Ellen. They were together for just over 3 years. There was no glue. Saturn had no power according to their astrodynes. There are so many other aerials between them. You may want to look at the charts more in depth on your own. The theme is a public romance, their passion, their reputations, the 5th, the 7th, the 8th, and the 10th house. The astrodyne synastry for these two people show planet Mercury with the most power at 37.22 astrodynes. Mars with the most power, with the most harmony at 10. But look at Mercury, a very close second at 9.59. One can see by the astrodynes that Ellen and Anne are immediately connected by their sexual attraction and that they understood each other very well. Anne's Venus and Ellen's Saturn, with 902 power and 6.76 harmony, provides a lot of spark. And looking at the grid, Anne's Mercury and Ellen's Venus score 9.99 in power and 12.49 in harmony. The 8th house has the most power at 67.57. The 7th house has the most harmony at 16.76. Gemini at 74.48 in power and 13.93 in harmony. No wonder they connected so quickly. Their astrodynes tell us a lot. But due to time restraints, I'm going to have to skip forward to Anne's last day because of the amount of aerials to be discussed. So now it's time to look at the misadventure that took Anne's life on August 5th this year. Even I was surprised at the synchronicity, the coincidence of the related planetary aerials are staggering. The presentation is about Anne Heche, her fatal vehicle accident. Were drugs and alcohol involved? Was it suicide? What about the conspiracy rumors that she was murdered by her car being hacked? When looking at events, you look at all 4 charts: the natal, the major progressions, the minor progressions, and the transits. Per ZZ Zane, course 10-1, Natal Astrology, quote, every important event of life takes place during the period while a major progressed aspect within 1 degree of perfect is present, involving planets characteristic of the nature of the event and which rule the birth chart house governing the department of life affected. For an event to happen, there must be reinforcement to one of the 4 terminals of the major progressed aspect by a minor progressed aspect heavier than from the moon, and released by a transit aspect heavier than the moon, unquote. A 4-wheel chart showing the natal, which is the center chart, the major, the inner middle chart, the minor progressions, the outer center chart, and transits for the event, for this event day, would be difficult to visualize and to navigate on PowerPoint, as you can see. Nevertheless, this chart is posted for anyone's interest. On rulerships, the parenthesis indicates a secondary, slightly weaker influence. For sudden car accidents, one would look at Mars and Uranus. For burns, firemen, you would look at Mars, Sun, and Aries. For a small light vehicle, Mercury. For brakes, Saturn. Drugs and alcohol addiction, Neptune, Pisces, the 12th. Hallucinations, the 12th, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, Moon. Fame, the midheaven, the 10th, the Sun. Murder, Mars, Pluto, the 12th. Major accident, Jupiter. It took 59 firemen 60+ minutes to access and fully extinguish, confine the flames, and remove her from the vehicle. Assassinations, Neptune, 12th house, Mars, and Pluto. When you take keywords of the aspects involved, a picture begins to unfold. Starting with her major progressions, Anne is the center chart for this event. The major progressions are on the outer wheel. The aspects are in strength order within 1 degree of perfect orb. Major progressed Neptune is sextile her natal Jupiter at 0 degrees separating 3 minutes. Jupiter rules the third house of transportation, automobiles, streets. Major progressed Venus is opposite natal Mars, 0 degrees separating 5 minutes. Venus, ruler of the first and eighth house, opposite the ruler of the seventh, the public, exact within 10 minutes. Major progressed Pluto is sextile Anne's midheaven at 0 degrees separating 8 minutes. Upon her death, she becomes news worldwide. Major progressed Mercury sextile natal moon at 0 degrees applying 15 minutes. Was she that emotionally upset that morning to drive into a house? Major progressed Jupiter conjunct natal Uranus at 0 degrees separating 24 minutes. Extensive damage to the vehicle and house causing a death. Major progressed Mercury semi-sextile natal Sun, 0 degrees separating 27 minutes. Discordant thoughts, her sense of self-worth. Major progressed Mercury square natal ascendant, 0 degrees separating 28 minutes. Discordant thoughts. Could this be disappointment? Major progressed Saturn, sesca square. Nope. Just a minute. Major progressed Mercury, square natal ascendant. Major progressed Saturn. Yes, sesca square natal Pluto, 0 degrees separating 31 minutes. Possibly not having control, breaks causing extensive destruction of property. Major progressed Uranus, conjunct natal Uranus, 0 degrees separating 39 minutes. An unpredictable and unusual event. Uranus rules automobiles. Major progressed Mars, in conjunct natal Saturn, 0 degrees applying 30 minutes. Aggressive, an inharmonious aspect between two discordant planets. All of these major progressions incorporate the planetary rulerships for this event: Mars, Pluto, Mercury, Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter, and Neptune. For a side note, and I have to move, there was a lunar eclipse on May 15th, 2022 at 25 degrees Scorpio, 18 minutes, which was conjunct Anne's major progressed Neptune at 26 Scorpio and her natal Neptune at 27 degrees Scorpio in her second house. The eclipse was opposite her natal sun. Minor progressions to the natal chart will be in Google Drive. Minor aspects have the least power when delineating a chart, but must be considered for validation. I found it interesting that her minor progressed Uranus on August 5th was at 19 degrees Libra, 33 minutes retrograde, conjunct Anne's ascendant at 19 degrees Libra, 23. Here we have minor progressions on the outer wheel to major progressions in the mid wheel, the natal in the center. Minor progressed Pluto, sextile major progressed Mars, fearlessness overrides caution, speeding. Minor progressed Uranus, square major progressed Mercury. Suddenly, the vehicle is in a collision course. Mercury rules the 12th house of sorrows and hospitals. Minor progressed Jupiter, trine major progressed Venus. Overconfidence affecting her emotions, her happiness. This Venus opposes natal Mars, rash behavior. What was going on in her head? Minor progressed Mars, Sextile major progressed Saturn, 2 discordant planets. Minor progressed Mars, square. Minor progressed Venus. I put this in because of the planets involved and Venus ruling her house of death. This is survival instinct, impulsive action, a destructive influence over her emotions, her sense of self-worth. We see that in these charts of the event have aerials to the rulers of her fatal car accident. We will now look to see if any transiting planets provide the trigger. On transits to the major progressed planets per ZZ Zane, only the transiting aspects made to the birth chart positions and major progressed planets should be noted. Special interest in the conjunctions, oppositions, and especially the slower moving planets in angular houses. The following aspects are in planet order from the slowest to the fastest moving sphere. Transiting Pluto is in an angular house making an exact sextile to her major progressed Neptune. Transiting Neptune is trining her major progressed Sun. Transiting Saturn is in conjunct major progressed Pluto exact. Transiting Jupiter, semi-sextile major progressed Saturn within 1 degree. Transiting Venus is conjunct her midheaven exact 2222. Transiting Venus is sextile major progressed Pluto exact, Venus being the ruler of her 8th house of death. Transiting Mercury, square major progressed Mars exact, 2 degrees Virgo to 2 degrees Sagittarius. And transiting Sun is semi-sextile, the major progressed midheaven exact. On transits to the natal planet, we have transiting Pluto, trine natal Jupiter exact. Pluto, again, is located in the 4th house, the end of life. Transiting Neptune is opposite her natal Jupiter. Transiting Uranus is in an angular position in conjunct within 1 degree to her natal ascendant. Transiting Saturn in conjunct natal Pluto exact. Transiting Jupiter, sextile natal Mercury. Transiting Mars, just entered her 8th house of death. Transiting Mars is semi-sextile natal Venus exact. Transiting Venus, sextile natal Pluto exact. And transiting Mercury is trine natal Saturn. Finally, transiting ascendant is conjunct natal Mars exact. You can see how much was going on with Anne's electromagnetic energy that day. And yes, there are transits triggering this event. We have planetary aerials covering this crash from all 4 charts, a major event. I wanted to show you this chart for the amount of activity going on that day with Anne. Hermetic astrology is not easy. It takes time and patience and a passion for this skill, but the results are rewarding to you, the astrologer, and to the person you are delineating. I had to declutter this chart so the minor progressions again are not included due to the already chaos overwhelming the viewer. This chart shows just the major progressions, transits, and natal, but know that the minor progressions are a valuable part of the delineation. We know they are active as seen in slide 12. When you look at all 4 charts together, you will see that there are numerous aspects to her planets in the 12th house, which, by the way, includes minor progressed Pluto in the 12th at 1 Libra, 40 minutes retrograde, sextile major progressed Mars at 2 Sag 21 within 1 degree of perfect. She took her secrets with her. This chart shows you how certain planets tie together to the natal, the major progressed planet, and the transient planet. Again, the minor progressed planets are not shown due to the visual clutter, but the minors also tie in here. So here we have transiting Pluto, trine natal Jupiter, sextile major progressed Neptune. So you see Pluto's at 26 Capricorn, Jupiter is at 26 Virgo, and Neptune is at 26 Scorpio. And major progressed Neptune sextiles transiting Pluto. Here we have Neptune, transiting Neptune at 25 Pisces, trining major progressed Sun at 25 Cancer, major progressed Sun sextiles natal Jupiter at 26 Virgo, and natal Jupiter is opposite transiting Neptune. Here is transiting Saturn at 22 Aquarius, the ruler of the 4th house, the end of life, in conjunct transiting Venus, 22, Cancer, the ruler of her 8th house of death, and conjunct Anne's midheaven, her fame, and transiting Venus at 22 Cancer is sextile both natal and progressed Pluto at 22 Virgo, and major progressed Pluto and natal Pluto in conjunct transiting Saturn. Transiting ascendant, conjunct natal Mars, transiting ascendant opposite major progressed Venus, and major progressed Venus opposite transiting ascendant. Could an astrologer have predicted this event? Should they predict the end of life? I personally don't think so, but the astrologer may have advised Anne to be extra careful should she find herself in a sudden uranium, Neptunian, Mars-like plutonium environment. Would she have listened? Princess Diana saw an astrologer a month before she died. The astrologer predicted a massive event on the weekend of the Paris crash, but that's another story. This is the last picture of Anne where she has bumped into the parking garage just before her fatal crash. The conspiracy theories hit the internet almost immediately. Murder and sex trafficking, Pluto, Mars, and Scorpio, the 12th house of slavery, kidnapping, confinement. Was this an accidental death or a conspiracy to remove her from further sex trafficking probes? She had just completed her movie, The Girl in Room 13, about sex trafficking. Was her car hacked? The AV technology is already out there. It was suggested she committed suicide, yet Anne was working on several projects at the time of her death. She had completed several films that were still in post-production and where she will now appear posthumously. Her movie, The Girl in Room 13, was about sex trafficking, released just this year, September 19th. Her second book is about to be released. She was set to star opposite Dermot Mulroney in the upcoming horror thriller Full Ride. She had a reoccurring role in All Rise on OWN, and she was premiering in Sam Levinson's and The Weeknd's HBO show Idol. For auditions for The Masked Singer, her regular podcast, and that morning she went into a wig store and bought a dusty red-haired wig along with some shampoo to clean it later. What happened that day? Once Anne died, the police closed their investigation. There have been no further reports or explanations as to what put Anne into that spin. Did that other side of Anne, her crazy side, take hold of her one final time? We will never know the answers, but the astrology certainly makes one want to ask more questions. Thank you for joining me today. If you have any feedback regarding future presentations, please send an email to churchoflight@church.org. And remember, please donate when you can to the Church of Light, who are always very grateful for your contribution.
May I correct, Laurie, that you said Church of Light at church? It is Church of Light at light.org.
You are right. Thank you, Vega. We will have a few minutes for questions after the closing ritual, but before we continue, I would like to thank the Church of Light and their remarkable 2020 horoscope program, and especially the two people that made this evening happen. Vanessa for mentoring me in PowerPoint, her valued suggestions, and her tremendous support. For this, I am grateful. And many thanks, Vega, for being behind the scenes to help make this happen on very short notice. Again, very much appreciated. Thank you all for attending.